So you can't be a shooter that offloads all the time. You've got to be able to be prepared to go to the post. Those are the things that we'll keep communicating with Tiana.
Claire's 33 now. This would be her last World Cup, and I'm just sort of a bit unsure about what is behind that. Just surprised.
We've got so many good attacking middies at the moment. Maddie and Mila did their very best to put themselves forward. I also think Claire probably gets a nod in terms of just positional balance.
Where we can shift hugely is defensively, getting more gains, but having a look of more dominance in our defensive strategy.
Nau mai ki te hōtaka o te Nete Poro Kiwi. Welcome to the Kiwi Netball Show. I'm Bridget Tunnicliffe, and it's only January, but we're already starting to think about the netball year ahead. And the path towards July's World Cup will be brought into sharp focus when the Silver Ferns embark on their final international hit-out later this week. Silver Ferns are in Cape Town for the Quad Series, where they will take on Australia, England and South Africa in a dress rehearsal for the World Cup. It will be the last opportunity for the Silver Ferns to size up their opposition as they try to defend their World Cup title from Liverpool 4 years ago. To help me preview the series is Stars coach Kiri Wills and New Zealand men's coach Dion Te Whetu. Kia ora korua. First of all, Kiri, are you back in full swing with the Stars?
Yes, we are. Kia ora to both of you. Yes, we started back from a little Christmas break last week. So back into it. Girls have come in from having a bit of a break looking really good. So exciting times ahead. We can't wait to get into our competition too.
And Dion, that Fast Five final, you must love replaying those last 2 minutes in your head.
Yeah, I think I've contributed to quite a number of the rewatches on YouTube, fair to say.
Yeah, of course. Great stuff. It was the best game in the tournament.
Thank you.
Yeah. I remember, I think there were a couple of massive defensive plays as well. It was wicked. Okay, before we get into the chat, let's listen to Silver Ferns coach Dame Nolene Taurua. I talked to her before the side left for South Africa, and she starts by talking about the World Cup format and who the Silver Ferns are on course to meet.
It's a tough pool and tough crossovers. And as you've alluded to with South Africa and being at home, that adds an extra, spiciness, I suppose. Not surprised that they've brought in more firepower. So it'd be good to get a bit of a taster, but also know already what, a Norma brings and also those players bring as well.
Do you feel a little bit vulnerable when it comes to shooting depth? This will be the third series in a row now. You're taking the minimum 4 shooters, the same 4 shooters. If one of those shooters got injured in the lead up to the World Cup, do you feel like you've got many options after that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas that we don't quite have that depth. Probably Tiana's in that mix, but there's probably a bit more work that we have to do during ANZ time to try and get that quality or standard up. I'm not too worried about it at this moment of time because we've still got another 4 or 5 months, but also it probably does highlight a bit of work that we still have to do in that space.
Are there any specifics that you want to see from Tiana?
Like with all shooters, it's their ability. One is you're looking at the volume. That's really important. Noting as well at international, everybody is going to be under the pump. So you can't be a shooter that offloads all the time. You've got to be able to be prepared to go to the post. Another thing that's really highlighted as well all the time is the physicality that happens in the circle, and either your ability to adapt and availability to the ball is an area that they have to be strong. And so those are the things that we'll keep communicating with Tiana and also looking at what that next depth or level needs to look like underneath.
Obviously, you've got Peta Tuiava and Gina Crampton going to South Africa for the Quad Series, and I guess the beauty of those two players, they're quite different, the way they approach wing attack. Will the selectors consider taking 2 specialist wing attacks to the World Cup? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, at the moment, I think we've been quite open as to, or not closed-minded as to the makeup of the team. And I don't believe you can be predictable as to who you want to select or how you want the team to select, because I think when you look at a Peta, she's been in and out, but she was sublime playing against Australia in the first 2 tests. So I think once again it will come back to players owning their own position, whatever that is, especially coming through ANZ, owning that position. We'll then look at what the mix needs to be, and we'll just see how I can combine combinations, I suppose, and what the makeup of the team needs to be.
The matrix that you established last year was, high volume shooting attempts, high volume of feeds and minimal turnovers. Do you review that matrix, or do you still believe that's the best formula for winning?
Yeah, I do. Just coming out of the Commonwealth Games, also what we saw in tracking the numbers from Jamaica, Constellation Cup, and just recently what's happening international-wise from England and also Jamaica, those metrics still remain the same. I feel in some areas there are slight changes where now it's harder to turn over any ball, and that's when you've got the likes of a Janelle or high shooting percentages up the other end. So that's really critical, one, that we can keep the possession of the ball, but I think also where we can shift hugely is defensively, getting more gains, but having a look of more dominance in our defensive strategy and also personnel. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like now that Jane's coming back into the mix, with Karen as well, with the experience coming back in the mix, probably as strong as we could be. So now it's just a matter of trying to see what that actually looks like in reality, and then putting the plan in and around ANZ to try and move us within that time frame.
So, yes, the Silver Ferns have finally got a full-strength team. Hallelujah. Gina Crampton, Watson and Berger are back. Kiri, we've really missed those players, right?
Yeah, look, I think particularly in the defensive end, I think Jane has been sorely missed. Just her mobility, she's so different to Sulu and Kelly and the way that they play. And I think against someone like Sophie Garvin, who is very, very strong for the Diamonds, just her mobility, and I don't know, there's something elusive about Jane. You never know where she's going to be, and she always gets hand to ball. So looking forward to seeing how she comes back from having baby, and of course Carden with her strength coming back as well. Gina, I think Gina has got a little fire in her belly because, let's be fair, Peter's connection with Grace was pretty sublime during that series. I think that's exactly what Noel's just said. So, she's never one to take her selection for granted anyway, Gina. She's one of the hardest workers I know. But it definitely has given her a little bit of a, oh, hurry up, I better get on with it. I want to keep my job. So, yeah, those three will be great.
Yeah, I think what the last 2 years has driven home for me is that it is tough for us to beat the likes of Australia without our very best players. So looking forward to seeing a full strength team for the first time in a while. Dion, Nolan talks about getting more gains on defence, and traditionally that's been a strength of the Silver Ferns, but probably last couple of years we haven't been as dominant in that area. Is that where we can make a real shift?
Yeah, well, I mean, is it that, or is it other teams are just becoming a bit more thrifty with their ball whip? I think we will see a change, and I think we'll see an immediate change with the gang getting back together. Those combinations. That's what I'm looking forward to the most, is just seeing these players, particularly the defensive end, just getting out there, and because that's going to be the real surprise, right? Is with these girls coming back, is what the change up is going to be. And also it gives the Ferns a lot more not only depth and experience to come back, but also like Kiri says, Jane is a different player to to Kelly, and so let's just see what happens.
Kiri, third series in a row, we're taking the minimum, same for shooters. Are we a little bit vulnerable in that area?
I think we are, in terms of big game international experience, and Nolene is really clear when she gives feedback back to the players. And I think she talked a bit about Tiana, and she offloaded quite a lot in the ANZ Premiership to someone like Aaliyah, and I guess but she's not the only one, like you look at the Mystics crew, and Grace shoots 99.99% of their shots, but which is absolutely their strength, but I think to be really confident in the international arena and a World Cup, you need to be stepping up and taking those shots in an ANZ Premiership at least, and that competition. And I think that's where, you know, a little bit more work needs to be done. I think there are some other great shooters out there. I thought Georgia had a fantastic Fast Five series, but she wasn't the starting choice for the Steel in 2022. Saviour was, and Saviour Tui's there. I think this is very much a sign of the times that there is a group of young players coming through. It's just how much experience have they got, and can they be relied upon moving forward? I also think, I have Maya Wilson in my team, and I know she's been a little bit shaky in terms of percentage-wise in the last couple of years, and so she's working really hard to change that. And I think one of the pleasing things for us this pre-season is she's come in hot, looking really good and looking really solid on the shot. So, even that 4, they've still got a bit of work to do. So it's this is an amazing opportunity at this quad series for these 4 shooters to really nail it.
Dion, Nolene didn't rule out taking 2 specialist wing attacks to the World Cup. I mean, she's not really ruling out anything at this point. I'm not sure if we've ever seen that before in a Ferns team for a pinnacle event, but I guess there is some merit because a wing attack is such a crucial position.
Yeah, it is a crucial position. They kind of set the tone, from the centre pass with what's going on, and they really are the communicators. But I think it's a good shout at this stage of the season for her to have a look at both Gina and Peta, and also gives her that option of, like if she does put a different shooting combo on, she can change it up, like Grace at the back with Peta. Obviously they play together, and vice versa with the other way around. So yeah, I think it's a good shout, but be interesting just to see how they perform, playing 3 different styles of international teams while they're over there, whether she gives them, like a half each, or just to test their mettle out.
Looking at the team of 14 picked to go to the quad series for the Silver Ferns, were there any surprises for you, Kiri?
Not really. Obviously disappointed for Kayla, but always knew that it was going to be tough with Carden coming back in, because there's that Goldie Windy swing which Carden and Phoenix can cover. And I think Phoenix, for me, at the back end of 2022 was one of our best performing defenders. So I'm actually really keen to see how Phoenix goes in the mix with Jane and Carden and how that all fits. I think, just going back to that wing attack conundrum, the reality is we've got so many good attacking middies at the moment, and Maddie and Mila did their very best to put themselves forward in the series at the back end of the year. But I also think Claire probably gets a nod in terms of just positional balance, because Whitney really is a specialist wing attack moving into a centre bib and doing a very good job at centre. But what if you needed more defensive centre? You can shift Kate, but then what else have you got? There's lots of moving parts. I mean, they can move one of those Goldies. So, yeah, I think it's another have a look at Claire and see what she can do in the mix. She's been out of it for a while, so she kind of will need to put her hand up, because we've still got really good people at home. There's Maddie, there's Kimmy, there's Mila. That mid-court is very, very difficult to be selected in.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you can say is that there's been a lot of indecision around the mid-court. Dion, is that a concern in itself? That I think it's anyone's guess who's going to end up in that mid-court come the World Cup.
Yeah, I just want to go back to what Kiri was touching on just before about surprise omissions. I am a bit surprised that Maddie is not on the team. And the reason I say that is she can play all 3 positions. I mean, we're okay now for wing defences, right? I mean, when I say we're okay, we're blessed. There's no doubt about that. But, watching Maddie play this year, in terms of what Kira was saying about a centre as well, and cover there, yes, taking Claire's 33 now, this would be her last World Cup, regardless. And I'm just sort of a bit unsure about why Maddie hasn't been selected. I watched her during the Cadbury series, her feeding just came such a long way in such a short space of time. And, the same with Mila as well. She's fantastic mid-court player. So look, like I always say, I'm not the Dane. I don't know what the thinking is behind that, but just surprised. I guess to your question, the selectors, in the mid-court, I guess I've answered a bit of it there. And I think what's going to happen is bring on the ANZ. No doubt, that this will be it'll be an interesting season for middies. I think we're going to see some pretty heated battles out there during the short ANZ season.
And I think the added complication is that Whitney Souness, who's been given centre duties for the Silver Ferns, I assume she'll be going back to wing attack for the Pulse. So it's not going to be straightforward comparing her with the other centres over the course of the ANZ Premiership. I don't know if getting half a game at wing attack in the Constellation Cup did Kimi Orapoi any favours.
No.
I feel like there was a bit too much experimentation last year, but it's also on the players, right? I feel what we haven't had over the past 2 or 3 years, I guess, since not wanting to keep harping on about Laura Langman, but these players need to be so good that they're standing out head or shoulders above the next guy, and that's what I don't know if we've really seen.
Yeah, look, I think the thing for me is that the game is getting more accurate, and Dion said it, that internationally everyone's getting really thrifty with the ball. So there's 2 things for me. I love that I've got Mila and Gina. We call them the double barrel shotgun because they are the 2 most accurate feeders in the entire ANZ competition by a mile. But you also have to be really strong in D, and that's where Maddie is really. She can play both ends very, very well. I feel the wing D centre role for me, I'm not the hugest of fans because I think it's more about ball retention than it is about snaffling ball. You don't actually get a lot out there, and that's where we are struggling to replace Laura because she could do it all. And Whitney's D game, man, she's working really hard on it and she's doing some really good things. But yeah, I agree with Dion, and I also agree with you, Bridget. When that change was made and Kimi was brought on, the logical thing to do would have been to put Kimi into centre because she's played centre all her life. All her ANZ Premiership games, bar a couple of quarters here and there to cover for injury, have been at centre. And Whitney's played the bulk of her career at wing attack. So I've really felt for her in that role. And I think, yeah, maybe we need to keep things a little bit more simple sometimes, especially with these fringe players who are coming in and trying to fight for a spot.
Yeah, especially if they've only got half a game. Yeah. Obviously 2023 is a big year for Grace Weke. I think there were some missed chances to give Grace more court time before she headed to the Com Games. When she got to Birmingham, she hadn't played a full game yet in the black dress, but she's obviously come a long way since then. Didn't flinch at all during the Constellation Cup, didn't look for the umpire for help. Dion, another chance for Amelia Ann and Grace to consolidate during the Quad Series?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be at that first Constellation Cup game. And, I just saw a different Grace step out on that court. We had the chance, the men's team had a chance to catch up with them the day before at our training run, and they just had a vibe about them, which obviously came out in the scoreline. But Grace, for me, she just had a different sort of maturity about her during that series. And, her footwork has just really come such a long way, and we all know she's incredibly strong. The boys have come off court from after playing with her and just saying, man, she's a tower of strength, which we've always known. But I think this Quad Series, she's going to really come back from that and just be another dominant force again in the ANZ. playing with meals as well, that encouragement. I think I said this last year. I think that's helped her game a lot, is playing with meals. We all know what meals offers, but also just that encouragement, that natural encouragement that she gives to players. Looking forward to watching these games.
Let's just touch on the other sides, the Australian Diamonds. Donnell Wallam wasn't able to make the team. Amy Parmenter missed out with Ash Brazel coming back into the side. Jo Weston not taking part of the quad series. She's nursing an injury. Future of Gretel Bueta is still not known, Kiri, but either way you look at it, they look very strong.
Yeah, they do. And look, Donnell Wallam, she came on and she had, there was all that controversy surrounding that, her very first series. It would have been nice to have seen her kind of given an opportunity with, now that all that stuff's settled down, and to see what she can do. I think Sophie Garvin is strong and she's very, very good at what she does, but Donnell's size makes her a whole new prospect. And so I think there's a little bit of a missed opportunity there in not taking her. Look, without Jo Weston, the Aussies are definitely not as strong. And we saw that in those two Constellation Cup games where she wasn't available. We were a lot more competitive. And I think when she came back on in Australia, she shut down Amelia Ann, and that therefore put a lot of pressure on that wing attack centre combo of Maddie and Whitney. They needed to do a whole lot more work to be available. So she's going to be sorely missed, but it's a great opportunity for Tara Hinchcliffe and those other young defenders who are they're very, very good players. So I'm not surprised about Amy Parmenter. I think she really struggled against our style of play. I think Petter ate her for breakfast. And now Petter may get a chance against Ash Brazel. So we will see how that goes, because Ash Brazel definitely brings a whole nother level of intensity to the game.
Mm.
The England Roses, they've just beaten Jamaica 2-1 at home. There is an injury cloud over shooters Ellie Cardwell and Jo Harton, waiting on confirmation whether they'll take part in the quad series. But they still took out that series over Jamaica. Some of the younger players are looking very exciting, but we've got to talk about Fumi Fidoju. First time I really saw her was in that series late last year between England and Australia. She was getting hand on ball she had no right to get. Dion, how good is she?
Yeah, and considering she's 176 tall, so I think she definitely plays above her height. So I'm just wondering after this series if they will keep her in that circle after playing against the Ferns and having a decent hit out against the Aussies, or whether they look to sort of move her out. But if you look at they've got Gusgoth and Jeeva in that circle. Let's be honest, this will be their last World Cup. So, it's at 176, does she stay in the circle going forward or not? But yeah, no doubt about that young lady. She's a weapon for sure.
Yeah, she's very good because she's got good footwork as well. So she comes off the body to give herself room to get up for that ball. And I think that slowed her down a little bit, but definitely she's got the hops and she's got the mobility. Whether or not she, goal keep, you can sit back and you can set yourself up quite a bit to attack ball, and whether she can do that further up the court when she hasn't got as much time will tell.
Jess Thirlby is looking at more wing attack centre options. Chelsea Pittman's back in the mix, and Al McDonald, another Australian, got her debut this morning. They've obviously missed Serena Guthrie in that mid-court as well, right?
Yeah, and it's taking them a while to find it, right? You would have, they've got a good competition of their own. They've got a number of players playing overseas. To bring in Chelsea Pittman at this stage, is there no one else out there in terms of mid-court? I think it's, you go to a World Cup to win, so you take the best players regardless of age, but surely there's going to be quite a big clean out in this England side post-World Cup, and therefore do you balance that a little bit with up-and-coming talent? I don't know. I've never coached in a World Cup, but it seems like they can't move away. They just can't move away from the safety blanket of Jade Clark and Natalie what's her married name? Metcalf, you know, and then to add Chelsea, that's just more safety as opposed to let's take a risk and coach somebody through this.
Yeah.
So South Africa, Carla Pretorius is back, Lenise Potgieter back, Norma Plummer back as coach, a home World Cup, finished 6th at the Com Games last year, but Dion, they're going to be so much stronger this year, right?
They are. I'm going to be a little bit controversial and say, you know, is that enough? I honestly don't think it will be enough, particularly with the firepower that these other teams are bringing, which will, you know, obviously boost the confidence, but you never know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how the rest of their team, you know, pulls up alongside. They've obviously had a little bit more game time under their belt going into the squad series, and let's just see if that, you know, that shines through when they're out on the court.
So the World Cup format, which I couldn't find any information on anywhere. When I talked to Nolene Toto before Christmas, she wasn't sure, she hadn't had confirmation who they'd be facing in the crossover at the World Cup. In the end, I emailed World Netball to find out if it was the same format as 2019. They told me it is. So it means the Silver Ferns will meet Jamaica and South Africa in the second stage. Kiri, a pretty tough group when you've potentially got 3 teams vying for the top 2 spots for the semi-finals.
Yeah, World Netball has got so much stronger, and that's such a beautiful thing, but it scares me a little bit being a Kiwi. You know, Jamaica are just going places when they've got their full strength side, when Shamira Sterling's in the back and Janelle's down the other end. They are very, very difficult to beat. And I think Rob Wright's having a huge impact over there. Like, you look at their defensive unit, it's a much more dogged and hard-nosed. And even in the short highlights that I was able to watch with the England series that's just been, there was a lot of hard contesting the line of the ball. So they are not going to take a step back, and they are going to be somewhere in that top 3. For us, we just need to get through to that top 4 and then worry about the rest later. And I think the Silver Ferns approach to that is always really good. They're a one game at a time team. They don't take things for granted, and they know how to win when it matters, which I think showed in the Commonwealth Games with their 3rd and 4th playoff against England. I'm a little bit with Dion, actually. I think I don't want to write them off and then they come out and surprise us and prove us all wrong. But South Africa, they're good, but they don't scare me like the other 3 teams do. I think if we do our game plan really, really well, I don't think that they will beat us. But the other teams, we have to be excellent, and we must, you know, they need to upset the other teams a little bit more. So, yeah, that's where I sit on that one.
If Jamaica pull that consistency together,
yes,
and they can run a 60-minute consistent, like their middies can keep their composure, everyone's in trouble.